knowledge. Today's going to be a quick video. I just had a couple topics I want to touch base before tomorrow. So if you don't know what tomorrow is, tomorrow's Thursday, and on this channel, every Thursday night at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I always do a longer live, but this is going to be the live before that. I just want to do real short. There's just three things that I've been really thinking about lately, and I just want to push it out in a short video. So I think a lot of people, when they look at the Pokemon hobby, they want like this huge crazy event to happen. They always looking at like crazy Black Swan events, and we don't need that year to year. What we need is just like small little changes in the hobby. They might not be huge, they might not be like crazy newsworthy, but as long as we get like these little things that happen, it's going to help, keep the trajectory of Pokemon going extremely strong. And the first thing that I really wish we see in 2024, and I think will be huge, is something I feel we were robbed of. Now, if you know this channel, you know I never talk about Japanese product, but we were robbed in English 151 because we never got the Master Balls. If Pokemon could just do that sort of chase rarity, and when you think about Master Ball reverse hollows from Japanese 151, it's not a really super special product. It's not any kind of crazy rarity or anything. They're just regular reverses, and all they did to those cards was just turn it from a Pokeball, and they added an M and turned it into a Master Ball, gave it a little bit of that rarity, a little bit of that scarcity, a little bit of that chase factor, and the hobby and the market ate that up. They gobbled it up. And that's all Pokemon needs to do. That's not a huge, gigantic step that Pokemon did. That was just a very small step. And if we see something like that come in 2024, just a little bit more of that chase factor. Make it so people want to complete master sets. Shout out to SM Pratt. SM Pratt made a video showing how he completed his entire Japanese 151 master set with all the Master Balls in it. Little teeny steps like that will help to carry this hobby to great places in 2024. And I am really disappointed that our 151 set didn't get Master Balls. I think already looking at 151, don't get me wrong, I am Gen 1 through and through. I bleed Gen 1. Most people out there watching this, most people of my age demographic, anybody who grew up in that original 99 red, blue timeline, like, that's what they love, is that Gen 1, and 151 had it. And 151 is a beautiful set to put together, and a lot of people were putting together master sets of 151. And in fact, in my experience, at least through all the craziness that we've seen, and all the new collectors entering it, while a lot of the new collectors came in with a lot of big dollar amounts in mind, and the investment aspect and all the craziness which was Pokemon in that 2020 to present timeline, one of the things a lot of people kind of pulled away from during that time is talking about the cards, talking about the Pokemon, talking about the artwork. But 151 really helped to change and sway that conversation, where again everybody was talking about the cards, they were talking about the artworks, they were talking about the Pokemon. But more importantly than anything else, what people were talking about doing was they were talking about making master sets of 151. I heard more people mention creating master sets of 151 than any other set in recent memory. So because people were doing that, it was a huge driving factor, and it still is for 151. You can look at modern singles today. Modern singles for 151, especially when you look at quantities available on TCG Player in relative to what that set is, a still crazy and standard set, a set that's still massively being opened daily. I mean, I don't even know how many 151 packs throughout the world are being opened on a daily basis, but when you look at the quantities of these cards on TCG Player, they're relatively low for what it is, a brand new set, and that's because a lot of people are buying this up, and I think a lot of those people that are buying this stuff up are the collectors. Now, if those collectors just got that one extra little rarity, so they just had that Master Ball, I think Master Balls would have been so huge for English. And we're already seeing what Master Balls are doing on the Japanese side. Shout out to Danny Phantom. Danny Phantom made a great video talking about 151, showing the Japanese Master Ball reverses, like the Pikachu. The Pikachu still is selling for over $400. Even, I call him still fan favorite Pokemon, but maybe not the Pokemon that jumps out to people, like the Jolteon. That's still a fan favorite Pokemon. It's still an evolution. It's still a lightning type. But Jolteon doesn't always come up in people's conversation as their number one Pokemon, but then you still look at like the Jolteon Reverse Hollow, or sorry, the Jolteon Master Ball Reverse Hollows from 151. Those cards are still selling for greater than $70. There's a lot of those Reverse Hollows Master Balls that are selling for huge premiums, and if English had that, I'd be super, super curious to see how the market would have handled it. Now, what would have been the, pull factor? I would say, like, if you just seeded 151 packs, like one out of every 36 packs had that Master Ball in it, it would be great. And obviously, Master Balls are not weighable. It's just a reverse hollow. There's nothing extra to the card. So, not that you could really weigh modern packs in the first place, but I always feel like in the back of people's heads that's still like a concern, but I'm not really worried about 151 being weighable. But anyways, like the Master Ball Chase is not a weighable thing, so it's just this great little nuance that Pokemon just sprinkled in. And that's all Pokemon needs to do. Now, the problem is I feel like 151 was the most perfect, most ideal set for a chase like a Master Ball. With these next coming sets coming up, I asked myself the same question. If they threw in Master Balls for these new sets, would it still hit as hard? And the answer, to be honest with you, is probably no. I don't know if that's enough to get people to start becoming, master set collectors of these super new modern sets. I think 151 was its own standalone thing, but Pokemon could still roll out something with that similar sort of chase, where it's still a similar, like, Master Ball, or I mean, screw it. At this point, Pokemon could just add any Master Ball, Ultra Ball, Lure Ball. It doesn't matter. It just Great Ball. You can just add any sort of like variant to these reverses, and I feel like it would give people a little bit more of a chase. But not only would it give people a little bit more of a chase, especially when you're looking at sealed product, and especially when you look at booster boxes, because right now booster boxes are one of those things that are really, really hurting, probably more than anything else, at least when it comes to super modern stuff. Even some Sword and Shield stuff is actually, I mean, I was seeing some Lost Origin booster boxes sell the other day for like 115, which, I don't know, 115. If you can get Lost Origins right now, I like Lost Origins at 115, but that's still a Sword and Shield set, And then you look at a lot of the Scarlet and Violet stuff. Scarlet and Violet, I don't think there's like many, if any, sets of Sword and Shield, or excuse me, of Scarlet and Violet right now in TCG Player over $100 a booster box. And that's one of the factors that's involved in that, is that when you look at the raw prices of a lot of these cards, while there are still hits in every single one of these sets, when you look at like expected value opening up a booster box, it's not really there. But the second you seed any sort of like chase, like a Ultra Ball or a Master Ball or Lure Ball or whatever Pokemon wants to throw in, they can just do Master Ball again. Screw it. So let's say there's that Master Ball chase. Even probably your non-chase reverses are still going to be sitting between that $10 to $15. So when somebody's looking at a booster box that's sitting at $100, and you're like, you know what? At least I'm guaranteed to get one reverse hollow out of this booster box. And, if the cheapest reverse Master Ball is selling for $10, $15, they're like, hey, I spend $100, I'm guaranteed to get back 15 to 10% of my money at a bare minimum. And then all the chases that I'm normally going to get in a booster box, your character rares and your, SRs and all the, other chases, that's just going to be like much, much better. Like you get, in a way, like a guaranteed expected value out of a booster box. It's something we don't ever really see. So to get, and then again, $10 to $15 on a Master Ball reverse is probably on the lowest end of all Master Ball reverses. So then, if you do have a modern set that does have that, same sort of Pikachu or Mewtwo or Mew or, whatever, like regular, like reverse hollow in that set that's going to carry that premium the same way we're seeing that Pikachu carry that premium in Japanese 151. I think it could be like that X factor to help really push Pokemon and carry Pokemon through 2024. And I think it's really going to make people want to start picking up a lot of sealed product, especially booster boxes, if you can get that guaranteed one, Master Ball reverse per English booster box. And that's the first thing that it's just like, out of the three things that I would like to happen in Pokemon in 2024, which will be huge, The second thing I'm looking for is, while it's maybe not in the Pokemon exactly, like as in Pokemon International isn't going to be the one doing it, but it comes to grading. I made a video recently, like my last video actually, talking about how I think a lot of people are going to have to be more picky and choosy about what cards they're sending. And in my opinion, I think that a lot of people are just going to be submitting less cards for grading, and the cards that they are sending for grading, they're just not going to be willy-nilly sending anything. And that's all I tried to say in that last video. And then I think some people took that video as PK thinks all modern Pokemon graded cards are gonna crash or some. I don't even know. I don't know how people like spin my words, but they're great at it. No, I if you guys took that out of my last video, that I thought the entire like PSA graded market was going to crash, like that is the complete opposite. It's just, I think people are going to be grading less cards, and I think they're going to be, more picky and choosy on which ones they send. So it's pretty simple. But like the second thing I really want to happen in 2024 is just for PSA to lower their prices right now. Looking at their competition right now, BGS, they're not really competing with BGS when it comes to price. BGS is still $18 a card for bulk. PSA is $3 cheaper than that. Their next competition, CGC. CGC is like $9 a card. You know, and if PSA can drop their price to bulk soon, and I think, to be honest with you, February 1st. Right now, at the time of recording this video, it's the middle of January 2024. I think rolling out on February 1st, this is a real hot take, but I think we see $13 a card graded. Now, it's possible we see $14 a card. It's always possible we don't see a change at all. But I think that PSA needs to strike while the iron's still hot. And I think right now, if they do want to lower their price, February will be the time, because you've already started to see like a little bit of a lull. I mean, still, if when you look at the gem rate data, PSA is still grading a ton of cards. Pokemon is still far out surpassing sports in by crazy numbers, especially when you look at sports from individual sports, whether it's Pokemon just against baseball, just against football, just against basketball, just against soccer. When you do it the one-to-one, Pokemon versus a single sport, Pokemon blows out all of them. We're getting to the point now where you have to look at Pokemon versus all sports. So baseball, football, basketball, hockey, soccer, all those lumped together. And then they're able to be comparable with like amount of cards that are being graded by PSA from Pokemon versus sports. And then the thing too is Pokemon is also a far, far easier thing for PSA to grade, because especially like, and Nat Turner's mentioned this on other videos. I don't think he mentioned on mine, but you know, Pokemon is easier to grade because there's only four corners. Where he said a lot of like the baseball stuff and sports stuff, a lot of it are like the autos or the patch autos, and he said there's actually 8 edges to grade, because when you think about it, those like patch autos, like the card stock is a little bit thicker, and because it's a little bit thicker, you actually, in a way, get 8 edges, because you can have the top of one of those corners be dinged, but that bottom corner right below it not be dinged. So when you start to actually count the corners, there's 8 corners that you have to grade, opposed to Pokemon, which is 4. And that's something like Nat Turner's talked about, that it just takes a little bit longer to grade sports, and maybe a little bit more stuff just because of, like I talked about, the patches and the autos and all that stuff that's involved with sports. But with Pokemon, it's a much easier like card to grade, especially talking about authenticity of cards. Anybody that handles enough Pokemon cards is really going to be able to like turn and burn through a lot and really understand condition rarity of Pokemon. Especially, one of the beautiful things about Pokemon is, a lot of Pokemon cards, even expensive cards, no texture to them, no hollow to them. A card that sticks out, probably a card that a lot of people are thinking of right now, is just Pikachu with the gray felt hat promo. It checks all those boxes. It's an expensive card. It has no texture, and it has no hollow pattern to it. That card, when it comes to a grading standpoint, is a very easy card to grade. And then, sure, like a lot of people are pumping out fakes right now, but the fakes are not great fakes. They're not going to have the same card quality. They're not going to have the carbon layer. And then right now on the bottom line, like Nintendo in the year, there's not even spacing. Like the printing wasn't even great. Now they'll probably change that in the near term, and a lot of people probably going to get burned from a lot of these fakes, but none of those fakes are making their way through PSA. But because PSA is able to turn and burn through Pokemon a lot faster, that's why we can see TCG specials at that $14, $13 price point. And I think February 1st, I think, in my opinion, we will see a price change. So I'm holding off on my next submission, just doing that wait and see play. Now, if February 1st comes along and we don't see a price decrease, then I'll just submit at 15, and all I do is I'll probably lose myself about 2 weeks between when I could have sent the cards out to when I could have got it back. So is 2 weeks a long time? Sure, but is 2 weeks the end of the world? No. And especially when what I'm talking about at this point is bulk. I'm not really worried about any of the upper tiers. So, I mean, we've already kind of seen PSA lower their prices to, they did that holiday special. If you have the collector's membership, it went down to $13.99. But I didn't see a lot of people like overly exuberant about that $13.99. It wasn't like something where everybody was just like, okay, I got to stop everything I'm doing. I got to submit cards immediately. This is it. This is my one chance to get that great price. I think people, even at that $13.99, I don't think PSA saw the huge influx that maybe a lot of people thought they would get with a lower price point, and maybe not even the huge influx that PSA was expecting. So if they didn't get that huge influx with that $13.99 holiday special, I do see $13 as being like a very possible number for February 1st. And not only does that do like the obvious thing, which is lower price and makes people more willing to send cards, because if you're sending in mass, let's say 100, 200 cards, to save yourself $2 per card at 200 cards, that's $400. That $400 can be a huge savings, especially if you now take that $400 and you buy other stuff in the hobby right now. There's so many good buying opportunities right now. It's absolutely wild. And just to think what $400 could have maybe bought you last year versus what $400 could buy you today, $400 has way more like spending capabilities in today's market than it did a year ago. So to be able to have that extra $400 in a lot of people's pockets can be huge. Now, I don't know. We'll see. Like, come February 1st, if we get that $13, not only does it do the first thing I say, which is obviously lower prices, save people money, but the second thing it does is what I kind of alluded to a little bit ago, is it really, really like puts a huge damper on a lot of their competition. I think a lot of people are looking at Beckett and they're looking at that $18 and they go, you know what? It's $18. You get subgrades. You can go for the black label hunt, and maybe you spend an extra $3, and I'm going to still send to Beckett opposed to sending to PSA because it's $3. But then when PSA goes down to $13 and Beckett's still at $18, then people have to look at the cards and go, man, now I got to spend $5 extra to spend the Beckett, probably have these cards be harsher graded, and probably have 0% chance of getting a black label. It's the same argument that people are kind of making right now with grading with CGC opposed to PSA. The only difference is CGC doesn't have the resale value that PSA has. Now, if you can bring it down, the same way as it hurts Beckett, because Beckett is now $5 more than PSA, so people don't want to grade with Beckett. It actually has the inverse effect against CGC, because now people are going to look and say, I only have to spend $5 more to go with PSA, because then they know that the liquidity factor, having a PSA slab over a CGC slab, is going to go way up. And they know that if it is like a more fan favorite chase card, I mean, it's pretty clear. You can look at what CGC 10s are selling for right now in comparison to PSA 10s. So to have that price drop by $2 and then only have it be $5 or $6 more, that $5 or $6 more can be a huge enticing factor. So PSA has like it working on both ends of the spectrum for them. People not wanting to grade with Beckett because it's going to cost more, and then people not wanting to grade with CGC because the price difference isn't enough for them. It's wild. Now, PSA's in a good spot right now when it comes to just like dominance of the market, and it's very clear. Just you can look at the prices that a lot of their stuff is selling at right now, and I think a lot of people, are probably gonna have to make some hard decisions, in the future too, is because as potentially, this isn't across the board, but I don't. So all right, let me phrase this right before I go off on too much of a tangent. While there's still a ton of cards selling all the time, it's just the amount of money you're getting per card is going down. Meaning cards that were selling for greater premiums, especially right at release, especially those first to bottom plays, like, or sorry, the race to the bottom plays, just the initial dollar amounts and how slowly that race to the bottom has been happening is just everything is just happening faster. That initial cards being first to market aren't getting the crazy premium. They're still getting a premium, just not the crazy premium. And then that race to the bottom is happening a lot faster. So because people are not getting that crazy premium, because that race to the bottom is happening a little bit faster, I think people are just going to become a little bit more conscious with how they're spending their money. So it only makes sense that if PSA needs to drop $2. So I think that's the second thing that has to happen for 2024 to play out really well is, so the first thing is we get that Master Ball type chase for some English product, which helps that guaranteed value of the booster box. The second thing is PSA lowers some of its prices, which makes grading more enticing again. And now, in a perfect world, PSA drops down to $10 and forget it. Whatever I said in my last video, throw that out the freaking window. $10, we're mass send and everything, but I don't think we see $10. But I do think February 1st, we will see a price decrease. And I'm hoping that price decrease is as drastic as down to $13 a card. I could be wrong. Like I said, it could be 14. We might see nothing. But I'm really banking that we see some sort of price decrease on February 1st. And it's not a shame on PSA because it's something that PSA has actively said. PSA has said that they are actively trying to get back to that $10 a card, or $10 per card graded. And I think if they're going to do it for anything, they wouldn't do it for sports. They would do it just for Pokemon. So, and then the third thing that all we need for 2024 to be huge is, when you think about Pokemon and you think about just, where most of the interest is, and most of the interest is always the same. It's just in modern. And I think right now a lot of people are just a little put off from modern because I think a lot of, especially the investors and those type of people, right now they're looking at, if they are buying product right at release, they're seeing stagnation in their money, or they're seeing a lot of initial losses in their money. And what I mean by initial losses, perfect example, Scarlet and Violet base. Pre-orders 110, Paldea evolved or whatever, 110 per booster box pre-orders. Obsidian Flames 105 per box pre-orders. Paradox Rift $95 pre-orders. Now Paradox Rift is sitting right around 90. Obsidian Flames is right around 100. Paldea evolved is sitting right around like 90. And Scarlet and Violet base is sitting right around that $90, $95. So you lost money on every single one of those if you did pre-orders. So because I think a lot of the people that were picking up a lot of this product to sit on it are just not doing it anymore because they're seeing actually losses by sitting on this product. And because they're seeing losses, it's just kind of maybe discouraging them a little bit from picking up as much product as maybe they possibly I would even go as far as saying maybe they should right now. There's a lot of great buying opportunities for a lot of this Scarlet and Violet stuff. Like, if you're looking for good entry points, like, now's the time. Like, you're probably not going to see much lower. Now, if for some reason Pokemon comes out with a wild reprint of some set that definitely doesn't need a reprint, like if they come back out and say, we're going to reprint Scarlet and Violet booster boxes again and Paldea Evolved and Obsidian Flames and Paradox Rift, and we're going to just do massive dumps, then yeah, we'll see those booster boxes drive down crazy. But the third thing I'm hoping that happens is I'm hoping Pokemon just cuts back print runs. That's a tough thing for Pokemon to do because that is for the secondary market to cut print runs. But if they cut print runs, it's really, really, really going to help a lot of this product really, really go up super fast. And cutting print runs can still be all-time highs for print runs with the exception of the last couple of years. We're at the point where Pokemon's printing 9 billion plus cards per year. If we could have Pokemon cut back to that 5, 6, 7 billion, which that is still in comparison to any other TCG. 5, 6, 7 billion of cards in a year would be a wild number for any other TCG. But for Pokemon, the hobby is so strong that the hobby would just suck up 5-6 billion cards, no problem. I mean, look at what we're doing with 9 billion. Yeah, we're seeing product on the shelves again, but we're still seeing some stuff, being sold out. We're not seeing like a lot of the fan favorite sets being available. Example being, Evolve and Skies, stuff like that. And once Evolve and Skies hits the shelves of any of your big Walmarts or Targets, it's instantly being bought out. Now, the more lackluster sets, sure, those are sit-in, definitely. But if Pokemon could lower those print runs, it will really make people start to like have more like faith in the market, where you can easily with lower print runs get back to the point where at release every single booster box goes up, and maybe you could get in at those pre-order prices of 110, and then after release demand is so high, but the print numbers are so low that 120 all day, and you never really see booster boxes dip below that 120 price point. For me, 120, that is where I like Pokemon to be for booster boxes. I don't think it's like overly crazy, like stonk dog to the moon where prices are going crazy. I think 120 is that perfect number. People that are getting product from distribution still have decent margins that they can make, especially if they're picking up booster boxes between $90 and $95 after shipping, fees, taxes. To be able to sell booster boxes at 120, I think that is a comfortable spot for a lot of those people. I think people entering into booster boxes, 120 is a nice price point, especially if they don't feel that there's weakness in the market, and especially if they don't feel that a ton of this product is going to just dump on the market again, and prices for those booster boxes, while they're selling strong at 120, that a reprint is going to drop those booster boxes to your 80, 90, which we're seeing happen right now with Scarlet and Violet. If that doesn't happen, consumer confidence in Pokemon will go crazy. And then at that 120 price point, as that product starts to get eaten up through distribution, as it starts getting eaten up through all your eBay sellers and everything, and then you see nice, true, slow, organic growth in that sealed product, because that's what we want. I know a lot of people out there, they want that stonk dog. They want to buy a box at release for a 110 pre-order, and then the day it's released, it's selling for 140, and a week later, it's at that 170. That's not healthy. I think, product pre-orders 110, selling for 120, and then gradually we see that price increase to 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, and then in a year and a half, so 18 months, that booster box is sitting right around that $170 mark with no signs of a reprint in the future. If you can get a booster box after 18 months to be sitting at $170, that is the most perfect, beautiful, I can't write it out any better, ideal situation for Pokemon. And if Pokemon can just tune their print numbers just right, where they can make that become a possibility, I think we'll be in a beautiful place for 2024. Because a lot of people are going to say, well, Pokemon's in the business of making money. And yeah, that is true, but don't get me wrong. Pokemon's also in the business of being a freight train, and look at how quickly sets come out between main expansions through specialty sets. Pokemon just keeps chugging down the road, so they don't have to just constantly look in the rearview mirror and reprint a lot of stuff. You just print enough to meet that initial demand, and especially with how much product is still being ripped right now for modern stuff, a lot of people make the cry for the playability aspect. What about the players? What about the players? Well, guess what? If Pokemon prints a lot of this stuff, we're still seeing like a lot of lows for a lot of playable cards. When you look at it in the history of this hobby, you can still make a very competitively viable deck pretty cheap. It might not be the flashiest deck in the world. It might not have all the alternative rares and the alt arts and all the wild stuff that's involved in the most blinged out deck. But when you talk about just, the actual playable cards, Pokemon's doing a good job of making those cards readily available. Whether it's through, main expansions, whether it's through, different build and battle sets, or whether it's through like there's just a ton of like all the starter decks and stuff that Pokemon is printing out, and especially for like actual playable cards, especially like a lot of the V-Stars and stuff that happened recently. Pokemon's really good at putting those playable cards as promos in a lot of collection boxes and stuff. Like, Pokemon's on its game, whether it's a collection box or a tin, but Pokemon's been making playable cards available. And yeah, again, they're not the most flashiest card, but they're available. It's the same thing. Recently, I know Charizard's been doing pretty good, but those Charizard EX boxes are all over the place right now. So if you want a competitively viable Charizard deck, it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to get those promos. Those promos are pretty cheap right now. So the fact that Pokemon can do this, those are the three things. So first is just that Master Ball style chase. It helps all booster box prices. PSA lowering prices. It's going to kill competitions on both ends of the spectrums. Beckett being too expensive. CGC, while they're too cheap, the price difference isn't worth it. And then that last thing is Pokemon just lowers the print run. So if there was any slowdown in demand, like you won't even feel it. We'll just get back to the point where like everything just has this slow, gradual, and when I say slow, gradual, even talking about booster boxes at 170 in 18 months, like when you look at anything else, like that is a huge gain too. That is a beautiful place to be at. All right. Anyways, so that's all I want to do. My goal is to make it 30 minutes. I'm sorry I didn't really interact with the chat too much, but that's what tomorrow's for. So before I sign off on this video, just once again, Thursday night, every Thursday for the year of 2024, I'll be going live at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys have any questions, that will be the live to ask questions. I'll be hanging around all night. I'll be around for hours. So, yep, that's my Thursday. I just wanted to get a couple of these thoughts off the top of my head, like my little, if I got my magical genie lamp and I was able to get 3 wishes. That's all I want. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Nothing I said in this video is earth, stopping, break the internet, break the hobby, meta changing craziness. This is just very small things that we can see happen in 2024. And those 3 things could help carry us throughout this entire year. And we're just sitting at January right now. But if those 3 things happen, 2024 will set itself up to be an absolutely beautiful year, especially when it comes to Pokemon investing, flipping, collecting, everything in between. It'll be beautiful if those 3 things happen. But yeah, guys, listen, I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in, and as always, I'll catch you on the next video.